Hi there, glad you could join us. Have you ever ended up in a bad crowd or know of a family member or friend who's ended up in the wrong crowd? You might be concerned for them to know how they're going to get out of this situation. Well, if that's your experience, then there's something to take from this quite explosive scene between Jesus and the religious leaders in John chapter 8 that were intent on killing him. It brings into sharp focus the issues that Jesus was facing with a particular group. It looks as if he was surrounded, and that's quite deliberate in this particular film shot, and this was a group that was out to get him, to destroy him. There can be times in our lives too when we can feel surrounded and people are out to get us. It can vary, as some of us might be blessed with good folks around us, but there can be times for us when work goes pear-shaped with a cruel boss, family life falls apart with a toxic relationship, a meeting becomes hostile, or an argument breaks out amongst friends. This gospel story landed on Jesus' followers' doorstep when there was conflict, at a time when the church started where there was no such thing as church buildings, but they were being chucked out of the worship places where they had been adopted into, and were seeing others who they worshipped alongside in a new light. The first followers tagged along to places of worship until that point came where they were no longer welcome. Why? Well, Jesus meant so much more. So John shares this conversation, or more argument, between Jesus and these corrupt religious rulers to help early Christians understand why they were being thrown out of the synagogues. In doing so, John gives us insight into human nature when intolerance disguises itself as tolerance. People who will go to great lengths to manipulate a way of life but not live a true life themselves. Likewise, we can learn from the passage too about a group of people we may have come across before, where they say one thing but do another. How do we handle people who are just so inconsistent? First of all, the warning signs are when people are offended easily. In our story, this particular crowd unravel when Jesus says something quite general about life, but they take it personally. They overreact because they obviously touched a nerve. So when I say generally, well, everyone is wrong in this world, it creates different reactions. Some of us will respond, well, tell me about it, because we know we're a work in progress, and in other words, we know we don't get it right all the time, so we accept that. But then there's a response from maybe another group. How dare you? And they take offence. And such a statement, then we begin to get too close for comfort when we're talking about this passage, because there might be some connections there. But why does that offence happen? Well, there's a denial or disguising or masking of something that they're hiding, and they wish to deflect from it by such a comment, by saying, well, I'm not trapped, I'm free. Where do we get this idea? I'm trapped. You see, Jesus said, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. He said earlier, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The second stage of unravelling in this situation is when we call it out, or draw attention to it. And when we call out something, we can likely experience different responses. Someone might admit straight away and apologise. Others might vainly deny anything, but then others might be quite defiant and aggressive. It's this last response that really happens in this story that we've read. This is where we should have alarm bells. In our story, it comes out then that they start to talk a lot about fathers. Now, fathers was a symbol of a family, who you belonged to, who you represented, your origins. And in this story it lists as Abraham, God and the devil. The issue is about integrity and authenticity. Who is your true father, basically, is the question that's being asked. And we say ourselves that you're your father's son. And Jesus said they looked nothing like Abraham to whom they claimed, based on their behaviour. You know, remember, the company he's keeping, they actually wanted to kill him. So he calls it out about their evil motives by saying they were the devil's children. That sparked a reaction. Now, we don't have the eyes of Jesus, but sometimes calling out something maybe should start with ourselves. We can be in denial that the group of friends are actually not good for us, or the colleagues we've fallen in with at work are not really a good influence. On the other hand, maybe we are in a good place and friends and family you have around you are good for you. Maybe you are fine, but you know your children or grandchildren are in not such a good place. They may need your company to work out the problems they are experiencing. Maybe they have fallen into the wrong crowd and we have to listen to them and to know how to help them and understand why they followed that pathway, to help them walk back out. Maybe reflecting back what you see will then help them go forward in life. And maybe we need to ask even of ourselves, what were they honestly looking for in that group that they couldn't find in our family here and in the friends they did have? If you give them the courage to call out to their friends, then they will need a secure place to return to. They will need the support of family and good friends who are looking out for their good. If someone has been in an abusive relationship, they need a safe and secure pathway to leave. There's a bit of me that wishes us to be careful when we're dealing with a bad situation. But the first step is to tell ourselves that we are in bad company and we need to get out and away from it. That's not going to be an easy stage. So we need to be wise and to stay safe. There is a third thing that happens when we see toxic persons unravel before us. We can learn from this in Jesus' story. And what's alarming about these people around Jesus at this time is that they are so sure of themselves and can't see that what they say does not match up to what they are. A cruel line manager, an abusive partner, a hurtful, manipulative friend are going to be unapologetic. It'll almost be a waste of time to think you can rectify that. They are toxic people, and toxic people have no qualms about hurting others. How do they do that? Well, we see again from our story with Jesus what happens next as it unravels further. These people think they are so right and they don't realise that they're wrong. They are blind to what they start casting the aspersions upon others. Everyone else is wrong. They can package it to look good. They throw back comments, maybe, you call yourself a friend. The worst ones are when religious people do it, but their actions are nothing like the God they believe in. In our story today, Jesus is being accused of having a demon. Now, I'm not here to figure out what the spirit world is all about, but what we need to stay focused on is what they intended by saying that. And in one sense we can get that by the way in where we demonise people even today, when we make people to look bad and people then are rejected. We put names and labels on people, and by doing so what we do is we draw out the prejudices of others to support maybe other people's views or our own views. And that's what happens in our story when the crowd surround Jesus and they say, "Are you not a Samaritan?" It was for a Jew, at that time an insult to say that another Jew was a Samaritan, because Jews hated Samaritans at that particular point. And that's why the story, for instance, of the Good Samaritan is so shocking, because Jews would never have considered Samaritan anywhere near being a good neighbour. So with one comment, in this story, Jesus was not one of them. It's a horrible experience if we encounter prejudice, whether it's said against us or our friend or our family member. But when things start to unravel, we need to be prepared for maybe that ugly human behaviour that can degenerate down and down. Sadly, if we are not ready for it, we can feel dejected and unwanted through no fault of our own. And we can be shocked by the ugliness in the heart of the person who has treated us this way. And it reveals maybe the insecurities that they have that are unresolved, but they're channeling it in a harmful and potentially dangerous way. We might not experience it, but we need to be there for those who are experiencing it and to care for them as they go through it. We need to remind them that they're loved and cherished. 3 things to take away then from this rather explosive passage. Be alert to why someone offends easily. They may have issues they haven't resolved, but they channel it in a harmful way to others. Be wise how to call out an issue. It could go a number of ways, so be ready. Be ready for backlash when you expose prejudice, and to protect those who are on the receiving end of those harsh words. Be prepared that other people might be completely unapologetic, and therefore we have to take care of ourselves. It happened to Jesus, so he understands. It could happen to us, and Jesus will be there with us, walking at our side. Let's help folks in those situations when the opportunity arises. Take care.